This is,
I think Sean had
Yes,
his
go
hand
ahead, yeah,
before
that's
you,
fine, yeah, I'll
John.
go after Sean.
as Ms. Robinson has said, I see the liability issue as being a non-issue, because if your property owner doesn't shovel your sidewalk, and a pedestrian has to walk out onto the street, and God forbid that pedestrian gets hit or killed, I'm sure that person's lawyer is going to sue not only whoever hit that person, but also the owner of that property once they realize there's a bylaw that requires the owner of the property or the tenant of the property to clear that sidewalk. So I would tell your owner of your property, find a new insurance company, because I see that as a non-issue. That should be covered in the liability policy. I find it, as Mr. Yule, I believe, does too, find it hard to believe that there's no coverage for property owner. And a property owner can just keep that sidewalk covered in snow, preventing any pedestrian to walk up there. And I'm sure there's, and Ms. Robinson could probably speak to this too, there must be some ADA issue as well if you're preventing essentially anyone with a disability from traveling and traversing up and down that sidewalk. I think the way the bylaw sets out, it's the responsibility of the owner to clear that sidewalk and make it passable for any pedestrian.
Which we do, but up to this point, what we're doing is to protect ourselves in case any liability. You know, people have owned the property for a long time. Last thing we want to do is just have a lawsuit, lose everything. But we do clear the sidewalk, but that up to now, what we're doing is creating a situation where bringing people on the property where there was access, they could get through down that length of road.
I understand. And I dispute that it's all town property. I dispute that as well.
I think the state highway actually will even further into our property.
This-
Mr. Vina.
Yeah, if I could, this is feeding in, I didn't get a chance to speak, but that's okay, because we didn't want to hear from the public first. But this is feeding right into I don't want to say complaint, but a question I had, what was asked of me by a number of business owners, is if in fact they do not own that sidewalk, can our bylaw make them claim it? And I said, I'm not sure. So this is kind of heading in that direction. Evidently, this gentleman who he represents, they do not own that sidewalk area. Can our bylaw make them clear that? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Mr. Yule.
Yeah, I can rest assured that at least in your major cities, if the businesses do not shovel their sidewalk, and if there is an accident in front of their establishment, that they are liable, and the city will not be liable. And there's no reason why we can't do the same thing, especially since we have the same type of bylaw that a city does have. I just can't imagine that we would allow ourselves to be dictated by an insurance company to say that if you don't do it, you're okay, and if you do it, you're not. It's one of those things about corporate America that just grate me the wrong way. So if we have a bylaw in town that says that businesses are responsible for shoveling their sidewalk, regardless of whose property it is at this point, okay, and they continue to do business knowing that, then they are subject to following that law. And if they have to get a rider from their insurance company because their insurance company won't cover them, then they get a rider.
I don't believe any business wants to be that test case, that they find out what happens here. I think we'll find, when we do clean the sidewalks, I think we just want some sort of clarification or some sort of interpretation from the town council, from the town itself, saying, here's exactly what you just said there. We get some sort of that format saying, here's the situation,
We have a bylaw in place. All you have to do is read the bylaw. That's the situation. Okay? Now, as far as, the capitalistic system works, all they have to do is find an insurance company that will cover them. They don't have to stay with that insurance company.
But I'm not sure, Dave, I don't know if this is the thing that each insurance agent, you're not insurance agent, but I'm not, so I don't know.
I'm sure there's an insurance company that would like to make some money on this issue. Okay? So it's got to be out there. And if you're, it's like any insurance that you purchase, all right, you have certain needs. And if your insurance company cannot provide them, then you go to another provider that will.
So get insurance companies that they don't want to take on as well.
I don't think there may be a premium, but I don't think any insurance company would shy away from something like that. The chances are so remote for something happening, all right, that it's in their best interest to enter that market. But you can always get riders to your insurance that would cover circumstances that might be considered out of the norm by the insurance company.
I can, check into that, but I'm just saying at this time, their insurance company doesn't. They wouldn't be covered for accidents, incidents beyond what they've done.
I'd get a new insurance company.
Maybe they're happy about it.
I don't mean to be hard on you. You're just the messenger, and I understand that.
That's what they're telling us, so.
I guess the way I've looked at this is that the board is responsible for assuring that the laws of the town are followed. And town meeting approved this bylaw. I don't know the exact date at this point, but it was approved, and it should have been enforced. And if it wasn't enforced in the past, it was because it was being lax. And at this point, enforcing the law is a decision this particular board has made. And I understand the concerns, and some people have made some points associated with, well, it's a surprise and we haven't budgeted for it. But it is the law of the town. And sorry for the surprise, but it's something that you should have been aware of anyway. Good business practice, in my opinion, would be to clear my sidewalk so that people can get to my business. Anyone else that, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Yeah, Jerry Gonzalez, 157 Main Street. Looks great. I do think sidewalks should be plowed. I'm not anti that at all. The other day on the snowstorm, I witnessed the guy I hired to do my sidewalk in a Bobcat spend hours maneuvering the Bobcat to do a few hundred feet of sidewalk. There's no tool out there that really can clean the sidewalk other than a sidewalk plow or a bombardier that the town owns. I mean, this Bobcat was banging on the side, banging, going out the street, coming back in. You know, you're driving a Bobcat straight down the sidewalk, lifting it up, then you gotta turn, and you hit the snow out in the street. It just, everything is awkward, other than the town bombardier. And I would be very happy to pay a small fee to the town to go up and down Main Street and just assess everybody that has property there and be done with it that way. Because that is the only equipment that really can clean a sidewalk, in my opinion. I did shovel mine the other day, though. And I really don't understand, who's responsible, is the landowner or the tenant?
Landowner.
The landowner?
Landowner, and if the landowner happens to have a lease with the tenant that's triple net, that's between the landowner and the tenant.
Okay.
But the ultimate responsibility according to the bylaw is the landowner.
Okay.
Whatever they work out with their
Yeah.
tenants is entirely
Yeah.
between them. So if they, if the landowner's gonna say, well, I have a lease with my tenant, they're supposed to do it, they didn't do it, we don't care.
Yeah.
The landowner's gonna get fined.
Is there any possibility of running the town bombardier up and down Main Street, and everybody just, do the town property, do my property, do residential property, if you got whatever it takes, and just say, this is gonna cost each business guy whatever it would cost? Is that ever a feasibility idea or a thought?
I asked the town administrator to get an estimate from a public works director on what it would cost to do that on a typical storm. I'm not sure he's got an answer to that at this point, but it's something I asked.
It's gotta be cheaper than paying my guy 5 hours on a Bobcat.
Mr. Belkon?
Yeah, I actually have a number. Just from Main Street, it's 2.4 miles of sidewalks.
Talking both sides? or-
We actually measured the sidewalks, so regardless of what side they're on, it's 2.4 miles.
Okay.
The DPW would haul the snow away, so it wouldn't be something that would just be stacked to the side of the street. We're gonna do it right, we're gonna haul it away. We would plow 2.5 inches or higher to any storm, and there's about 9 of those on average. That's the only big stuff cost on us, 9 storms a like a great cheap alternative. I don't feel that they provide us with a level of reliability that we need to do the work. So, if you take the $7,500 and multiply it out times 9 storms, the annual estimated cost for Main Street is about $67,500. That's a ballpark number, but at least it gives us an idea what the potential cost is.
What I just did is I just took your, 2.4 miles.
Right.
5,280 feet per mile, 1 times 2.4, divided it by $7,500, that comes to about $1.69 per linear foot,
Per storm.
per storm.
Yes, but keep in mind that, and this comes back to this other issue that we have to consider in the process of this. There's a lot of land there that is town land, that is unplowed.
Right, so it's our responsibility to plow.
Exactly.
That includes that.
What I wanted to.
That includes that, right.
The problem, if I can, with this semi-proposal, please don't leave yet, Meg. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to doing something like this, but because of people who are in chairs, in wheelchairs, 2.5 doesn't cut it. It would have to be done every storm, 1.5 inches of snow. I mean, we can't say we're only gonna do it with 2.5 inches, because everybody who's in a chair has just been, they can't go there. So, and I'm not saying I'm opposed to the town doing something like this. But if I could chat a little.
Go ahead, keep going.
One of the complaints, I did receive kudos and I did receive complaints. And one of the complaints that I heard from the businessmen, and I got several calls, is that, there was actually several complaints. One was, they were fined when town sidewalks were not plowed on Main Street. And I think that is wrong. I don't think we should be issuing nickel one until ours are done also. The other complaint that I received is that not everybody got a fine and their sidewalks weren't cleared. And I'm not gonna mention names, but I spoke to a business person who it was not cleared and did not get a fine. So I don't, I know it was the first time, shall we say, but whatever we're gonna do, we have to do it across the board. And I'm not faulting anyone.
Are all the business owners that are here tonight have businesses on Route 28 or in other locations? What? You live on 28.
And you clear part of Route 28.
Right.
But but back to, back to this proposal, I know it's for figure. We can't cut it off, we can't start at 2.5 inches. If we have a 2-inch storm, everybody in the house on Park Street, they just can't move. Yeah, and I guess one other comment I'd like to make, in reference to the letter in the paper and to the gentleman who's at the meeting, our cemetery department is not sitting around because it's snowing. Our cemetery department is manning these plows, and they're working. I just don't want the feeling out there that the cemetery department is sitting down in a little building somewhere because it's snowing. This is not true.
No, that's not how I meant it. I was gonna say the very next day, after they're done plowing, they can go around and do it.
Well, they probably sand, or they probably do,
Right, but I mean,